much more than I imagined it was going to be.
Think about these words, intuitive and poetic.
I had never really before done something that I really loved.
When we look at the history of televangelism, we find that.
And I have had probably one of the most transformative experiences that I would ever have had in my life.
So the relationship between God and humanity through Jesus Christ,
it's amazing. I love the students, I love the classes.
Every day I would learn something new and be like, wow, I never knew that.
Their excitement when they come in is just palpable, and it is a wonderful shared experience. It's also wonderful to sit with them through the challenges of seminary education.
Is student debt a big issue for a lot of my classmates right now? Yes.
Realities of life don't stop just because I'm in seminary.
Yeah, it was definitely overwhelming looking at the numbers.
A lot of my fellow students are pressured by finances.
Even for a moment to think that finances would be a determinant in whether or not I could answer my call to God is kind of mind-blowing.
Well, the first thing I would tell a beginning student about the relationship of money to the journey they're about to embark on is that these are not separate journeys. I really want to stand on the side of that engaging your money life with intentionality is a spiritual practice. In fact, it's a site of very powerful spiritual practice.
I don't see coming to School of Theology as anything other than an intensification of the life of discipleship. In some sense, all of us are called, like Abraham, out of our space of comfort into a strange land. And I have been thinking about Jesus' words on being a disciple in the Gospel of Luke. And this is found in Luke chapter 14, when he says, "Whoever comes to me and does not hate father and mother, wife and children, brothers and sisters, yes, and even life itself, cannot be my disciple." What is important about that first line is, this is not playtime. This is really serious. The life of discipleship is costly. In whatever circumstance we do it, it is going to create strains in our other relationships. It doesn't come naturally. It forces issues with our relatives, with our friends, with our background, and with our finances. Whoever does not carry the cross and follow me cannot be my disciple. In some sense, then, it means following in the path of Jesus himself. And then Jesus gives these two great examples about a guy who wants to build a big tower, like a skyscraper, but he hasn't figured out whether or not he has the resources to finish it. And he's a fool, because he's undertaking a great project, but he hasn't calculated. And then Jesus gives another example about a king who wants to go to war, but he hasn't really calculated what his enemy's troops are and what his troops are. And I love this in terms of people coming to study theology, because you have to be very realistic and very serious. What are my resources? Do I have what it takes to bring to bear on this enterprise? Can I pay the price?
Yeah, you probably won't. I got a carrot.
My name is Joya Abrams, and I am 33 years old. I'm a third-year student at Candler School of Theology.
You got it. Good boy.
I am a mother, and I'm a wife. We have 2 children.
Oh, woo!
Our oldest son, Ben, is 6, and our youngest is 11 months.
You want to play?
I didn't plan on coming to seminary when I was an undergrad. I was an engineering major. And I planned to have a full career as an industrial engineer working at the company that I interned at. And I was excited about it. I was great at what I did. But in the end, it just wasn't the fulfillment that I was looking for. When I realized that God was calling me to ministry, I initially refused. I said, I can't stop working. I think then I was making just under $50,000 a year. So you can't just stop. That requires planning. And so, and then too, I wasn't ready to leave the lifestyle that I had.
Dear God, thank you for the food that is before us. Please help that nourish our bodies.
Could I afford the education in seminary? no, we didn't have that kind of money saved. So definitely the expense of seminary shocked me when I saw how much it was going to be. When I went to an open house at my school, they left that for our end discussion. And so to see that number on a piece of paper was quite disheartening. And so I said, well, I don't, and here I am ready to apply, but I don't know how this is going to work.
Students are under enormous pressure right now to pay for school.
Dissolving this academic enterprise of theology and turning.
The partnership that once was the church and the school is now much more a partnership of the school and the student. And the student is bearing more and more of the cost of seminary education than ever before.
I look at the realities of our financial responsibilities as being a very large part of my Christian life.
Good job, Ben. Yeah.
So in the consideration of why am I buying something, does this make sense for us? It is a theological discussion that we have in our home as well as an economic one.
Enrollment in seminary is a great time to think about larger theological issues and about who we are in the world.
We're born into circumstances, we have different backgrounds, we have different issues, we have different challenges, but money presents a very rich opportunity to deal with these issues in a constructive way, not in a kind of splitting, oh, well, you know, the way to deal with that is to simply never talk about it or not deal with it or hope that it goes away or hope that it takes care of itself.
It takes a lot of courage to go to seminary. It's a big challenge, and it's a constant set of personal questions about how we live our lives. And one of those questions is, how do I live my life so that my basic needs are met, but not at the expense of my future or the expense of others?
The main things that we did were looking at all of our outflows. We couldn't increase our income really. And so we looked at, well, what's going out? Seeing if we could restructure any debt, the monthly things that go out, cable. We have no cable, haven't had cable for a while, turned off the landline.
I definitely can't go shopping as much and have to watch, like going out to eat and things like that. I live with a roommate who's a fellow student, and she and I share food costs. We make dinner for each other. We kind of plan our household budget together so that we can help each other out with the expenses of graduate school.
If you wanted to come through this and get everything you can from this experience, you're going to have to let go of materialistic things. You're going to have to let go of people. You're going to have to let go of anything, any person, place, or thing that is draining the energy that you need for this experience. You're going to have to, in some ways, pull back or let go of that.
I'm Stacy Rushing. I'm the pastor of Invite at Johns Creek United Methodist Church, and I graduated from Candler in May of 2008.
I'm Dalton Rushing. I'm the pastor of Serve Associate here at Johns Creek United Methodist Church. In addition to the formula that the conference uses, it's cliche, but I came to seminary looking for answers, and I discovered that it was the questions that I was looking for.
The first day of seminary was exciting to me because I knew that we were going to dive headfirst into all this knowledge and practice of ministry and to really start to deepen an understanding and a calling we had felt in college.
I think I probably was like most seminary students, at least entering, in that I had very little idea of what I wanted to do. I didn't know if it would be pastoral ministry. I didn't know if I'd work in a nonprofit. You are walking into a situation in which there are lots of possibilities that are open to you, none of which are especially lucrative.
When you get the letter that says they're going to give you a scholarship to cover your tuition, you think, I have it made. This is great. This isn't going to cost me anything. And then I started looking for an apartment in Atlanta, and I realized how much that would cost. And then I started to add up the fact that I'd have to buy my own groceries. And then once we were married, realized that we would have to pay for health insurance through the university. And suddenly the reality of the broader scope of finances came to weigh on us. And I remember us being fretful at first about what it cost to live.
But we realized really quickly that we were both going to need to work and work a significant amount of time. We both had part-time jobs. You were working for the Society of Biblical Literature. I worked for a church as a youth minister.
It used to be, I'm going to put on my student hat for 3 years, or I'm going to, work part-time. And a lot of times now, people are working full-time, raising families, trying to pay for school, and trying to be good students.
You'll notice that Christology comes into play here.
The way students pay for school has changed in that they have to be more creative.
There are funds all over the country for students thinking about theological education, and my encouragement is for students to pay attention to that, what I would call free money. Someone believes very strongly in supporting theological education and has kept that money aside, and there's no reason that our students shouldn't be receiving that money.
So you may have anybody who's willing to help you with something as simple as paying your data package bill, or buying books for you, or taking care of your insurance. A lot of people don't know, either because money makes people uncomfortable or because they don't have the time to marinate on how do I pay for school. And so I'll marinate for you and be like, oh, are you from Alabama? Did you know there's a church there that could help you?
All of us have a cohort around us that wants to support us. And I think helping students to talk about the ask, as we would say in the development world, is really important. Helping them think about ways to ask people for help, and then encouraging students to thank people for that help.
My name is Mashawn D. Simon. I'm 34 years old. Growing up, I very much was oblivious to how we were really living. But I would sort of suggest that we were probably middle to lower middle class growing up. Paying for college was not something we even considered or thought about. I recognized at a juncture in my life that in order to make a difference in the world, what I needed to do was to get the educational or academic backing to be able to have that impact in the world. While it has been one of the most fruitful and transformative experiences in my life, it's been one of the most challenging experiences of my life. You don't necessarily have to be there, but I want to invite the new officers. Coming to school provided for me an opportunity to figure out, for the most part, what is it that I want to do next, or what am I supposed to be doing next? And so the idea or the thought of I'm about to collect an enormous amount of additional debt never crossed my mind. Nobody ever really said you were raking up thousands of dollars in loans until I got done with my bachelor's degree at Kennesaw State, and then it sort of just hit me. But by that time, there was no this has to stop or you're getting too far in debt. It was, in order for me to accomplish what it is I need to accomplish in life, I need an education, and so I need to do that by any means necessary. So the pile of money we're talking about that I am in debt for is somewhere around $109,000. That is an awful lot of money, an awful lot of money.
Seminary students are packaging their education in a number of ways. Many are borrowing money and doing that through the Federal Stafford Loan Program. They are eligible for $20,500 a year. If they take that, that's over $60,000 that they'll be in debt to upon graduation. That monthly interest has either accrued or they've been paying it as they've gone along in seminary, and the latter is very unlikely. And so they're going to be looking at probably $75,000 that they'll have to pay off because of that accrued interest, and that's a lot of money.
Especially for me, I have some undergraduate loans also, and so knowing that I have those and then coming here and knowing that I'm going to have to take out more money, there's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of pressure behind it.
Of course we're concerned about it, but also in order to do the job that I'm called to do, I do need to be here, and loans seem to be the way that we could feasibly do it.
It is a bit of a pressure No one comes to seminary to be a millionaire, and no one comes to seminary to even plan on making a lot of money. So you've made a choice that's putting you into debt that you're not necessarily ever going to get out of.
If a student's already through their undergraduate school years and have taken on a lot of debt, and now they're considering a master's in divinity, I think it's doable, but again, I think they have to think very hard about how much debt additionally they're going to take on, and hopefully get some help calculating what that actual dollar payment will be, actual budget number, so they can have a deeper, more real sense of what that's going to feel like when they graduate.
They make it really easy to take out loans, and so taking out loans hasn't been a problem. Looking at right now, like how I'm going to pay them back, is definitely a problem.
It is much too easy to get a loan for school. At least when I was coming along, that was part of your financial aid package. It said, well, this is your grant, and then this is your financial aid, and that was a euphemism, of course, for a loan. And all you had to do was sign. And then when I started seminary, it was an electronic signature, so just click. And I think that there was not the understanding of what does that look like every month when you graduate.
The loaning system works against the borrower because it automatically puts the maximum amount of loan on your account. It automatically, you have to opt out of it instead of ask for it. And that, sometimes when you're starting school, moving to a new state, trying to find a place to live, you're like, oh, okay, I'm gonna reduce that loan amount, and then you forget. And then the next thing you know, you've got $10,000 when you really only needed $2,000.
I've been encouraging students of late to not necessarily accept what they're offered. The university's job is to try to package their financial aid to the greatest amount possible up to meeting their need. That doesn't necessarily mean the student needs what the university has packaged them for. And so I've suggested to students that they accept only half of what the university has offered.
I'm so sorry that debt is a four-letter word, because it's really not always a bad word. Educational debt is a crime when you have the educational debt and you don't have the degree, or you have the educational debt and you can't focus in class because you're so distracted by all the other things in your life. So borrowing is not a bad thing. Responsibly borrowing is the best thing.
There are a number of tools to help students determine what their loan repayment will be based on the amount they might borrow. And the federal government, for example, has a wonderful website that allows students to plug in an amount, and then it'll spit out what the interest will be and what the total then repayment plan will be for them over a 10-year period, which is the standard repayment period.
What I've found is that even those people who have quite a bit more debt than we acquired, I don't think that they feel burdened by the school debt as much as they do by other kinds of debt that they accumulate. And I think that their one regret is that they acquired other types of debt on top of their school debt, and that they weren't forthright about their financial situations in the moment, because that, I think, is what's burdening them more on the flip side.
Credit card debt is the hardest one for people to talk about because of the shame, because of the embarrassment, and because they think they're the only ones.
We have had to use some credit card debt to stay afloat.
You're doing so well. Thank you.
Our cash flow during the month generally doesn't quite work out with when the income doesn't come in necessarily when it needs to be spent. So we have had to use our credit cards. We did not increase our credit card debt the whole time that we've been on one income. It's kind of been level and going down a little bit. But to credit card debt, I would say just say no. Figure out some other way of paying for whatever it is you're trying to pay for, because unless you have the for sure income and the discipline to use credit cards without ever carrying a balance, it's too much of a temptation. It's too easy to use.
We're surrounded by a culture of quick and almost really instant gratification. It's very easy to get credit cards for folks. It can be a sort of unconscious, painless way of sometimes anesthetizing a problem, and an anxiety, and I think it's very easy for people to fall prey to it.
And we never wanted to be saddled with credit card debt. That was important to us, that we knew what everything cost, and that even if it was put on a credit card for the month, at the end of the month, the goal was always to pay it off. Because we knew looming in the future was all of the debt that we had accumulated in college, and that ultimately we would have to pay back the student loans. So we didn't want to leave school with any more debt than we had to.
Look at what the situation is with the credit card and figure out what must I pay just very systematically to begin to not just pay what is the minimum, but actually begin to eat away at the principal. But you have to set a realistic goal there too, even if it looks like it's going to take you many years. The key there is not adding to the debt.
And I have actually seen a number of folks who, because they didn't deal with financial issues early in their ministry or early as they were preparing to enter seminary, they assumed that they would worry about it later, and these folks end up with all kinds of debt that really do press against them later and limit the number of opportunities they have, because they have to frequently go outside of their interest or their calling in order to make sure that they're not stuck with too much debt.
It's definitely something that's on my mind because I see what that monthly responsibility is going to be. And that puts a lot of bearing on what do I do after I graduate. I hate to look at becoming a pastor as a job, as a means to pay for something. But the reality is, coming out of my seminary, we have to find some income.
The greater your consciousness, your control of your debt. And I think that that's really what we're talking about here. That's very key as you're a student. Delimiting that, keeping that under control will enhance your freedom to follow your call in the future. If you fail to do that now, you will unfortunately lay the groundwork for a situation that could dramatically constrict your ability to do that in the future. And so, you know, you're in a situation where you've got to get as clear as you can, as prayerfully and as quickly as you can around these issues early in your career.
We try to work with students individually to put the pieces together. The diversity of our students in seminary right now is so great. They range in age from maybe 21 to 65. They're male and female. They're African American, Asian, Hispanic, Native American, Caucasian. They come from lots of circumstances and have different sets of resources to draw on to get them through this program.
So this over here are your financial aid to-dos and your admissions to-dos. I know that you're uncomfortable, and I know that money is uncomfortable, and so I start with the individual's picture because everybody's different, and there's no one way to pay for school. There's multiple ways to pay for school, and we just need to find the best way for that individual student.
I met with 2 financial aid advisors, and both of them really took time to sit down. They were so diligent, just amazing, in helping me to contact my lenders to really see how much I owed and what ways I could pay it back in a way that wouldn't drown me for the rest of my life. And that was really doable while I'm in school.
If I had one piece of advice that I could give students, it would be just like G.I. Joe, knowing is half the battle. If you know, now we have something to work with. But if you don't know, if someone else knows more about your finances than you do, that may work in life, but it's not going to work here at school. No one can keep your account straight but you. No one can project what you want to get out of this experience and how much you're willing to pay for it but you. That sacrifice is yours and yours alone.
Oh, absolutely it can be done. And it's wonderful. Again, this is, in no way do I want to be a wet blanket on the call. I'm all about the call. I followed the call. I believe in the call. I believe in the education. I mean, I benefited dramatically from the education, and I know others who have. I think it's a tremendous opportunity. It's like any other spiritual practice, you know. It's why we call it practice. Right? We practice. It's a great opportunity for that. It absolutely can be done.
So finances are very complicated and can be very difficult. But in the 9th chapter of 2 Corinthians, Paul encourages the Christians in Achaia to be generous in this collection, even though they don't like him very much right now. And he says, the point is this: the one who sows sparingly will also reap sparingly. And the one who sows bountifully will also reap bountifully. This is the text that was in my mind when I talked about paying the price and making the commitment. If students make the commitment, they're going to reap tremendously, all kinds of possessions. It may not be a fortune financially, but it will be a richly furnished mind.
Yes, it is worth it. It will change your life. You won't look at your relationship with God, your relationship with other people, with food, with money, with anything the same. Your world will change, and it'll be worth it.